Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
So today's episode is a special one, sponsored by the World Series of Board Games. The World Series of Board Gaming is an annual event held in Las Vegas that supports casual and competitive board gaming. Even though you can just turn up and play some games, the main event revolves around a tournament where you can earn a cash share of $40,000 by being the best at a variety of games rather than one particular game. Of course, I'm probably not the best one to explain this in detail, so just for a quick promo, I thought I'd let the hosts of the show do a better job than I could.
The World Series of Board Gaming will be held over 5 days in Las Vegas, Nevada. The annual tournament will crown the world's best all-around board gamer. During the first 4 days, hundreds of gamers will compete in the 16 ring events. Each ring event will consist of up to 5 rounds of one game. Competitors can play in one ring event per day. The 16 ring event winners will play in the semifinals. The procedure for choosing the semifinal games and filling the tables has been designed so that none of the semifinalists will play a game they've already won. In the final, none of the 4 finalists will play a game they've already won. When the game chips are added back to the bag, the 4 games played in the semifinal and any game won by any of the finalists will be removed. Each of the finalists will then confidentially choose another game to remove from the bag. A WSBG representative will draw one of the remaining chips to determine the game played in the final.
Get on with it!
Now, in all fairness, being honest, tournament play is not my style when it comes to board gaming. I'm one of these people that just likes to play the game for fun. I'll try to win, and if I don't win, then whatever, doesn't matter. But as soon as you start putting cash prizes, ranking statistics, and things like that into board gaming, I find that some people take it a little bit too far and you lose that sense of fun.
I must break you.
I don't even like the ranking system on Board Game Arena, frankly. I use the software to play games, but I hate the fact that you've got this thing that ranks you as one of the better players online. Congratulations, you got lucky a few more times than others, therefore what do I care? That's just me though, and I get that tournament play does appeal to a lot of gamers, and certainly the World Series of Board Games is probably one of the biggest examples you're gonna get. But this video is not just to big up the World Series of Board Games, no. Nope, there are 16 main games that are being played at the event, but also as consolation prizes for those who get kicked out, there's also 16 outer ring games. So that's 32 games that are being hosted at this tournament from varying levels of complexity and accessibility. And my job here is just to give a quick rundown of each game. Yep, I'm going to talk about each game very briefly as to what the game's about, whether I love it or whether I hate it, and believe me, I'll be totally honest on this front, but also whether I consider myself a good player at the game and whether I think it's suited for tournament play. Now there's 32 games here, so to make sure this video doesn't take 3 hours, I will be going relatively quick through this. So consider this a speed run through the World Series of Board Games main games.
Isn't that lovely?
So let's kick off with 7 Wonders. Very quick drafting game that you can play with up to 7 players, although I prefer to play it with less personally. With drafting games, I like to know that the cards could come back round and push my luck for that. When you've got 6 or 7 players, you never see those cards again, so you're basically just hoping that the cards that come to you are going to fit what you've taken earlier. But the game itself, love. 10 out of 10 game. I've got all the expansions in here. Works a treat for me. Now, I have played this in a Game Cafe tournament before, but that was a bit of fun, and it was a semi-final where I think there was 7 of us, and the top 2 went to the final. I came second and eventually won the tournament, thankfully, with 7 Wonders duel, funny enough. But it's one of my favorites. 10 out of 10. Love it. I would probably play it in the tournament if it was just a friendly one. At least it's a quick game, but to boast that you're the best at 7 Wonders, it's got quite a bit of luck involved, so maybe hold fire on that front.
How dare you!
Next up is Acquire. I don't own Acquire and I've only played it once. This is essentially a game where you're trying to build up clusters of hotel chains, I believe, and you're doing it by buying plots of land, but it's all about buying low, selling high, making the hotel chains worth more, and eventually making a decent profit and having like the best shares and that at the end of the day. It's all that kind of sort of Monopoly style money making. It's a very old game, came out in the 60s, and my experience with this was just one game that I played because I was very curious. I wanted to try it once just to try the classics, and I thought it was fine. I mean, it takes a while to get through a 4-player game. It's not the shortest game ever, and it's okay. it didn't really leave much of an impact on me. But then this isn't kind of my style of game. I don't play a ton of economic games. This one is definitely an economic game, but there is a decent amount of tension as you're vying for the different spots and everybody's trying to get in your way. Some people might be helping your hotel chain or getting in their way. It depends on who's got shares and what. So there's a little bit of interaction with players, which is a good thing. I mean, let's face it, that's something that's lost in most modern board games, a sense of interaction, and this is one of the earlier ones that did. But to have it in a tournament's kind of weird. I mean, it's not the first one I would have expected. I certainly wouldn't be very good if I played it in a tournament, but yeah, this is an odd one. Not the first game I would pick for a tournament per se, especially when I would imagine that a lot of people probably haven't even played it, given that it came out like in the 60s odd, and a lot of people that have gotten into modern board games probably haven't gone back and tried it as a classic. But I'm interested to see how this one pans out.
I admire its purity.
Next up, Azul, classic little abstract game which I no longer have on my shelf. I'm trying to point it out, I got rid of it eventually. I like this game, but I did burn out on it after a while, and this is the original Azul, which I still think is probably the best one of the lot. It's super simple, you're just grabbing tiles in order to fill up your board, but there are restrictions as to which tiles you can take and how you can place them on your board. The different colours and patterns will score you points. Usually the best way to do it is to cluster your tiles together so that you can create rows and columns, but also so that the clusters score more points by being next to other tiles. Of course, this is all subject to restrictions, whereby when you take tiles, you have to put all the same type on a row, otherwise you might have to drop them and it causes negative points. Very quick, very easy to teach, and a cool game, although this is one that, again, I don't know if it suits a tournament play per se, unless you've got people who really know what they're doing. I prefer to play this as a two-player game, because as a two-player game, you're going back and forth, you can easily predict, like, alright, if you take that, I'm probably going to have to take that, you're going to take that, and there's more realms to do screwage for the other player. But in a four-player game, you can only really concentrate on the person ahead of you. There's not much you can really do about the other two players afterwards, and in order to screw those players over, you're kind of relying on the person after you to be paying attention. So if you've got people who know this game well, a four-player game can work. But other than that, I feel that this is better kind of like as a final two-player head-to-head type game for a tournament. I'm alright at the game. I'm not particularly brilliant at it. I probably won 50% of the games I've played of it, lost 50%. It is not too bad. Now, I don't, I've sold the game, I've burnt out on it. I still respect the game, but there are other abstract games I prefer. I've even still got Reef on my shelf, I think I prefer that one. But the spin-offs that came from this, I think, just took the concept and just went a bit too far with it. Because Azul shines as a nice, simple, abstract game for new gamers. I hated Stained Glass of Sintra. It introduced more randomness into the game and made it just more fiddly. And then the Pavilion came out, which was fine, but again, it just kind of overcomplicated a system that didn't need to be made more complicated. And I haven't even touched the Garden of Love, or whatever that new one is. I've forgotten what it is. The Garden Gazebo edition, the green one. But I've not really got an interest to it. And yeah, less bit said about the chocolate version, or whatever that rubbish is. I had no idea. But this one is nice, it's simple, and one good thing about these tournaments is that it shouldn't just be insanely complex games. It's nice that a simple abstract can get thrown into the mix. Although, I'd probably prefer to have something like Onitama, or maybe like one of the GIF series of games, like Yinch or something like that. One of those be in the tournament. But then, you can only play it with 2 players, so I guess there's the restriction. Next up we have a gem of a game, Ark Nova, one of my favourite Euros. I love it, I will play it relentlessly if I have to. I have played it 3 times at a 24-hour game marathon, and that included at 3 o'clock in the morning. I love this game, and it's probably my most played game on Board Game Arena. I love it, I love it, I love it. And I do consider myself to be pretty good at it, at least from a personal standpoint. I have definitely won more games than I have lost with this one, and this is using the asymmetric maps and the basic one as well. It's just a game that I adore. I love playing this, getting the animal tableau of cards, creating combos, and that cool action row system where you choose an action based on the strength value it is on your row. I kind of call it the typewriter mechanic. Use the action card, it's at strength 5, cool, resets back to 1. pushes the others up, and you're kind of planning about 5 or 6 turns ahead with lots of short-term goals. The game is not about having a long-term strategy. It's about short-term goals, achieving those based on what cards come out and what the conservation projects are. Now, I do not care about the ranking system on BGA, so the fact that this can be played in a tournament arena setting, I just do not care. Some people do take it too seriously. But the game is a long game. It is pretty complex. We're talking 3 hours plus for like a major playthrough of it with 4 players, certainly. And even though there's a decent amount of skill involved in the choices that you make, there is still an element of luck of the draw. The cards might come out that suit what you're doing, but they might not. And a bunch of sponsors may come out that somebody else is just able to get hold of because they've got their card at strength 5 and they can easily snap it, and there are some insanely powerful sponsor cards in the game. So as much as the game is, I do love it, it's not perfect, but it's still one that I adore, to put it in a tournament is a little concerning, because you may just have a game that doesn't go your way, and if it doesn't go your way from the start, it's going to be very difficult to catch up. I would certainly be a little bit bummed out if I sat in an Ark Nova game for a tournament prize and found out that during the game somebody just got really lucky with the cards they were drawing from the deck and I didn't. Not to say the game is a complete luck fest, it certainly is not. The better player should still beat the newbie player. But there is still that element which could get in the way. But honestly, if I'm going to play any complex game in a tournament setting, Ark Nova would probably be it.
You're not sleeping with it, are you, Ray?
Right, let's go a bit faster actually, because I think I'm taking too much time. Brass Birmingham. This is one that I'm not surprised it would be in the tournament, and I hate this game. I hate it. Hate it. Not 1 out of 10 levels, but I hate it, okay? I'm not a big fan of Martin Wallace's games. This is a Euro game with that same old theme of, oh look, it's 19th century, let's make stuff out of coal and cotton and iron or whatever, and it's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. This is not a game I enjoy. Looks gorgeous on the table, I love the artwork in it, and it certainly isn't the most complex game in the world, but I'm just bored playing it. I think it's too mean. I think the card system introduces an element of luck that I'm not keen on with something that can be very mean, and you can be just shut out of this game in the early game and never have a chance to recover. I get that it's got its fans, but honestly, I just don't get it myself. I have tried so hard to like this game. I've given it all the chances I possibly can, but just throwing in a map pack expansion and adding beer and expecting that to win me over is not enough. This game is just, it's one of those ones where I'm in the minority. So many people love it. I don't, not for me. But it's no surprise it would be at a tournament.
We have such sights to show you.
Next up, Patchwork. Patchwork, I do actually own this one on the shelf near me. Yes, a cool little abstract game. Although, interestingly enough, I thought this tournament was going to be mostly 4-player games. So the idea that a 2-player only game would be in the mix is kind of weird. But Patchwork, very straightforward. I mean, you are literally just, placing tiles with buttons on them on your board in order to fit all these Tetris-shaped pieces as efficiently as possible. Very straightforward, and it's just got a cool turn mechanism of whoever's at the back of the turn track is the one that goes first. It's straight up nice and simple. It certainly, has an element of skill involved. There's not a huge amount of luck in the game, to be perfectly honest, and it's one of Uri Rosenberg's first ventures into something that didn't involve farming like crazy. It's definitely one that I would certainly like to see in a tournament setting. I think it works very well as a casual abstract. I don't tend to win many games of it though, frankly. It's kind of weird. I think I get too hard up on choosing tiles that fit nicely on my board rather than thinking about the button income that they generate, but it's just a nice little game and I give it thumbs up.
This is the way.
Next up, the Castles of Burgundy. I've not played this in years. I think this is one of the first dry Euro point salads that I played, and was probably my first introduction to Stefan Feld, which most of you would probably be thinking, oh sweet, you played one of his best games first, that means you love Stefan Feld, right? Wrong! Hate these games. I hate the Stefan Feld games. The guy's lovely, I'm sure, but I just cannot stand Stefan Feld games. There's one exception, Cocopelli, which I don't mind, and even then, I'm waning on it. Amerigo was okay at best, and then I got rid of it, but I cannot stand Castles of Burgundy. Everybody goes on about it, saying it's amazing. I don't remember it being amazing at all. I remember it just being not necessarily terrible, but just boring. Nothing in it is exciting. Nothing in it is interesting. None of the choices you make fill me with any kind of sense of achievement or joy or whatever. It's just dull. every definition of the word dull is what I associate with Castles of Burgundy. And it's mostly dice and, you know, a decent amount of luck involved as well. So to have this in a tournament setting seems kind of odd as well. I mean, if the dice are going to hose you, they're going to hose you. What are you supposed to do about it? But not to mention that unless you've got the new version by Awakened Realms, it looks horrible on the table. Although, to be fair, I don't support the idea that Awakened Realms made you spend £150+ to buy this ridiculously overproduced version of a dry point salad. That still boggles my mind, but again, not one I'm a fan of. I certainly dislike Brass more than this one. This one is not one that I go, oh, it's garbage, but it's just so dull. It's difficult to really mention stuff that's terrible about it because nothing about it is particularly interesting.
You're going to burn in a very special level of hell.
Next up is Cascadia, which is downstairs because I packed it for going away for my parents' golden anniversary. This one is just a solid little game. Very beautiful, very pretty, and such simple rules, and a good solo mode as well, although that's not going to help a tournament play. This one just basically has you building up a little map of different tiles, different terrain types with little animal tokens that go on each one, and the animals will score in different ways based on the type of animal and which version of the card you use in a game, so there's a good amount of variety. You essentially draw two aspects, a token and a tile from a tableau row, and place them in your map, and you're trying to build an efficient map that utilizes the point scoring in the best way possible, while also trying to keep big clusters of the same terrain together for even more points. Straightforward, very simple. I enjoy playing this one solo, but I like playing this one as a good 2-3 player game as well. 4 maybe seems a little bit chaotic with the rows, but again, it's just nice and simple. I certainly feel like I've won more games than not, but this one does tend to lend itself well to tight scoring, like really close finishes. So if you want like one of the more tense introduction games in terms of like, oh, who's going to win this game? I can't think of many that would beat Cascadia. Points can be like tiebreakers at the end of the day, and this is something that you typically score between 90 to 110 points. So to get tiebreakers and scores that feel like they're really, really close is pretty impressive. But it's a nice little cool game, and certainly one I recommend.
Okay, that's a start. That's very Earth-friendly.
Next up, Dune Imperium. Now, Dune Imperium, I ranked fairly highly when I first played it, but then the kinks in the armor started showing, and I wasn't a big fan of the way that the deck building was handled. I thought the worker placement was totally fine, and it looks like a dog's dinner. But the deck building was the flaw. The bit that was like, oh, this isn't particularly good, it's not particularly flexible, you can't really trash cards easily, and most of the cards are garbage. So I kind of waned on it. And I got sick and tired of the fact that everybody was praising this like the next second coming and was putting it so high on the Board Game Geek rankings. Now recently I've warmed up to it a little bit more with the introduction of the expansions, mostly Immortality, because of the way it introduces some tweaks to the card deck building system and some other cards for you to acquire. That's definitely my preferred of the 2 expansions. But I'm going to imagine that this tournament, the World Series of Board Games, is hosting this as the base game only, which means there's going to be a lot of cards that are pretty much garbage in this game, and a few that, like the Worm Riders and that are just going to be sought after like crazy when they come out. You've then also got the problem that the Intrigue deck has 3 cards, I think, just 3 out of the entire deck that can score you more victory points. In a game where you only scored 10, that's kind of prone to some big swings there. And this won't be a short game either. These games tend to take over 2.5 hours to play, and for a game that can introduce a lot of luck, because this one has a lot of luck. People won't admit it, but it's deck building. And this is deck building where you don't have a lot of sway with your deck. So you are drawing cards and you may just have a hand that does not work for what you need to do. And it's not poor play that's led to it, it's just unlucky card draw from the deck. For a game that takes between 2 to 3 hours to finish with 4 players, I don't find that acceptable really. But it's no surprise that it's there as a tournament game, because let's face it, it's one of the most popular games out there at the moment, so naturally a lot of gamers will have played it. I will play this with the expansions included as a fun game with a cap of 3 players. 4 players is just way too much, it is just too long, oh my god. Any slow player in Dune Imperium will make me want to bury my head in spice, because it's just not gonna be a good game. But you know, I've warmed to it a bit more. I still think it's overrated as can be, but at least if somebody offers it on the table and they have the expansions and I know that there's no slow player in the group, I realize that's a lot of criteria, but, you know, that's just the nature of this game, I will at least sit down and play it.
Lies made baby Jesus cry.
Next up, Gaia Project. Gaia Project was a game, basically a sequel to Terra Mystica, and I had Terra Mystica for a while. I tried Gaia Project, and overall I would say Gaia Project's the better of the two games, mostly for the tech tracks. The tracks in Terra Mystica are kind of basic and bland, whereas in Gaia Project they're a bit more differentiated. But this is not a game that I'm a massive fan of. I don't think it's bad, I don't think it's boring either, it's never really gravitated to me. I can see why people really love this, but it's very dry, there's no theme in it whatsoever, the rules are very fiddly, there's a lot of elements, particularly with the movement and what the range of when you go to different planets and that. I find it to be very fiddly, it's not well explained, and it's a long game, it takes a while to do, and the fact that the balance is kind of off in places with the factions really doesn't work for me either. You know, you have games of Terra Mystica in the past where you could auction bid for what faction race you got. That means that the races aren't balanced, and you can do this in Gaia Project as well. If you can't balance your races, don't put them in there like that. You know, find a way to fix them. Don't put some arbitrary auction mechanism that is only relevant for those who have played the game 100 times. You know, I'm certainly not one of those players, and I probably have not won this game very often, but it's okay. I like leveling up the different tracks and having a different path to victory, and I do like having asymmetric factions, you know, and there's certainly a lot of choices of where you can go paths to victory on, but some factions lend themselves better to others, so why would you deviate? And if things don't go well for you at the start, you are done. This is not a game you can catch up on. Somebody gets off to an early lead, they've won, that's it. And if you've called that leader early, you might as well pack the game up and quit, because why are you playing the rest of the game? It just has a few problems that have irked me in the past, but this is immensely popular. I do not see it being played often locally, but I do know it's a popular game out there and a lot of people love it, although most people tend to play this solo. So for it to be a tournament play, I'd be curious to see just how much, you know, how popular it is from a multiplayer perspective, but it's fine. I don't dislike the game, it's just got a few problems that get in the way of me wanting to bring this out more often. I sold Terra Mystica and Gaia Project after I tried both, I acquired both, and I think there was a period of time when I really did enjoy Terra Mystica, but it just didn't have it didn't have the staying power. It impressed me at first and then quickly waned, and it's like, yeah, I prefer more thematic Euros. And that is true. Most of the Euros I like to play tend to be very clean rules, streamlined, or very thematic if they're going to be complex. And Gaia Project just doesn't work for me.
What? It's still on? Oh!
Right, can we talk about a good game now? Oh, wait. No. Great Western Trail. Oh boy. Yes. I will say this though. I do hate this game. Yes, the few times I gave this plenty of chances when it first came out, and I hated it every single time. I don't like the mechanisms in it, how they work. Deck building I love as a mechanism. What is it doing in this game is completely stupid and pointless. You know, I don't overly care about the buildings that you do. I don't like the idea that you're doing this ring the roses loop constantly, delivering cows of which apparently it's good to go to the negative point Kansas market first in order to give you acceleration later. I don't get it. It's weird, but you know, and I've had no real interest in the spin-offs which basically feel as close to the original as Birmingham does to Lancashire. But I have said that because this is one of the earlier games I played in my sort of like my ascension into modern board gaming, this is one of those ones that maybe I could do with playing one of the more recent ones as an update. Like maybe play Argentina or play New Zealand when it comes out and just try it again. See if my tastes have changed, see if things have evolved to a point where I'm like, oh, I can appreciate this one a little bit more, even if I don't necessarily love it. But I'm still put off for the fact that I just feel like I'm just going to walk into another like extra layer of hell when I play this. I really didn't like it when it came out. The fact that it's rated so highly I just do not get. I think it is incredibly overrated. And if you're going to have this sort of element of a deck building in the game, the idea that you like, right, I need to go to this place and sell some cows. Well, I better get my best cows ready. Where are they? Oh, they've all become ninjas and are hiding up in trees, because apparently the deck building element stops you selling the cows that you want to sell at the time you want to sell them, which makes zero thematic sense. It's in there as an arbitrary entry mechanism because a lot of Euro games just want to throw everything in the kitchen sink and to hell with any sense of reality as to why it's in there. Cough, cough, revive. But, you know, I don't know, should I try this again? I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to walk into a bonfire at that point. But it's popular. Can't deny it. I'm in the minority here. It's a tournament one. I won some games I did, but not many. So I wouldn't exactly class myself as an expert on this by any means. But for tournament play, loads of people have played Great Western Trail, loads of people enjoy it, so you are going to be rammed to get players for this game. It's going to be probably one of the most popular ones at the World Series, and, you know, fair play to it. It's a game that's popular with a lot of gamers. It just really didn't work for me.
Oh, yes! I hate this! It is revolting!
Oh, God, please, give me a good game. Rah. To do rah. No, whatever. It's this one's a pretty good game. Rah is an auction game, one of the classic auction games, and I reviewed it recently. You can check out my video, and I think it's decent. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's like the best auction game ever, but it's overproduced as all get out for a kickoff, but that's the new version. I still enjoy this one. You auction tiles and they score in different ways. Set collection, have the most of or least of, or collect different types, or try to not have none of them. You need to have a little bit, and basically the idea is that you draw them out of the bag, they collect together in a big row, and eventually somebody goes, right, I want to summon Ra and start an auction, and then you auction with these sun discs, which are kind of like fixed currency tokens, in order to grab the tiles. It's a cool system where when you give up one of those currency tokens, you're exchanging it for one in the middle, and it could have a higher or lower value than the one you had before. Very neat little system. If anything is annoying in this game, it's having to pass around that stupidly large bag of tokens all the time, unless you can track your turn order well enough to have one person draw them all at the same time. It's a bit of a pain to do it must be said, but the game itself is still good fun. I played it recently at HandyCon, actually, a 5-player game, and it still went over really well. Again, minus having to pass the bag. So in a tournament game, that's certainly going to be a bit of an irritation, unless you've got one moderator next by watching the game who's constantly going to draw tiles. That'd be quite handy. You know, can I just have one of those on standby every time I play RAR? Just some dude nearby who holds the bag and draws them. That'd be quite handy. Or some automated tile pulling machine. I don't know. But the game itself is pretty solid. I've won more games than I've lost, I think, in the times that I've played it, although I've only played this, probably about 10 times now, and that's mostly just because of reviewing the new version. But it's a solid auction game, but there's still an element of luck of the draw of what tiles come out of the bag, but this is meant to be one of the less complex ones that gets put in, and certainly there is an element of tactic and strategy to utilizing your sun discs in the best way. Like, when should you start an auction? When should you try to stick a low disc in? Should you try to have high discs for the next round? There's still some interesting choices to make, and I like this one. I've still kept it. I still prefer other auction games like High Society and a few other smaller filler versions, but this one is still pretty solid overall.
Yes, quite good.
Indeed.
Most certainly.
Right, we got 4 more to talk about, and next up is Splendor. Splendor, there is a little element of luck of the draw from the cards that can come out in terms of what gems they want, but otherwise this is a very good tournament style entry level gateway game. I still love this game. I mean, I've still got it down here with the, I've got the 2-player version, Splendor Duel, but I've still got Splendor with the expansions. I don't play the expansions very often. I prefer to just play normal Splendor, but I've got an insert for it. I've got it all sort of nicely boxed up in here. It's just a solid game, and it's so simple. One of the entry-level engine builders. All you do, collect different gems of different colors. The cards are in 3 different rows in order of their cost, and you basically just trade in the gems, take the card gives you one of those color gems to utilize for paying for other cards, and you just build up a small engine in front of you until you get 15 points. Nice and straightforward. You can teach this game in about 60 seconds. It's that simple, and yet it's worked with my family, it works with other players, it works with new people, gamers. It's a fantastic engine builder that just got a lot of hate from people, which I swear just seemed to be because it was popular. I don't know. It's not for everybody. Some people might find it boring. I can see that. I find it quite interesting. There's good tactical play involved. A little bit of luck of the draw. But again, this is a game that takes you 30 minutes to play. It just does what it says on the box. Really nice, streamlined, and simple. And, the expansions throw a little bit of extra edge if you want something for gamers. But for tournament play, this works really well. You will have some luck of the draw with the cards coming out, like say I've collected a bunch of these particular cards and then suddenly all the cards that come out don't require that particular gem, but some of that element at the start of the game you're aware of with some of the expensive cards, or particularly the nobles, where you can tell that, ooh, blue and green are quite common there. I should probably collect a lot of the blue and green cards. But then the level 3 cards mostly want brown, so maybe I should ignore the nobles and focus more on the browns. You know, there's some of that stuff you can dictate at the start of the game, but of course everybody else is, and you can't ignore the other players. You know, a lot of these engine builders you have to ignore other players because there's no interaction. Here, you need to pay attention. What gems have they got? What are they aiming for? What cards are they likely to buy? All of that stuff is to be considered, and so certainly the better player will win this more often than not. But I still find myself losing occasionally to, you know, family members and that who haven't had as much experience in games as I have, purely because there is a good little balancing effect in there. It's just a solid little engine builder, and definitely one for the World Series.
I beg to differ, sir.
Now, I'd be surprised if this next game didn't turn up in the World Series, Terraforming Mars. This one I've warmed up to, providing you play it with 3 players max and only have Prelude as the expansion. Otherwise, I'm just not a big fan of playing this. Terraforming Mars is, you know, it's popular with a lot of people, but personally I think Ark Nova and Terraforming Mars do have their differences, but why do I play Terraforming Mars when Ark Nova exists? But the thing with this one is that it involves drafting, and drafting in itself introduces a luck of the card draw element. And this is not a short game. This is a game that with a lot of players, I mean, if they're planning to play this in 4 players, this is still one that could probably take a good 2.5 to 3 hours to finish, and you may just not get the cards you need. Here's my corp. It requires me to, like, build a lot of plants. Sweet, I'm good at doing plants. I should focus on getting green cards. No green card, 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 no green card. And what are you supposed to do when the cards hose you a bit like that and somebody else is like, well, I get lots of cool stuff if I can find titanium. Oh, look, titanium card, titanium card. Oh, the fantastic OP titanium card, fantastic. It's like, that player's kind of in with the running. But also, the problem with this is that I suspect that being in a tournament setting, it's going to be base game only, which means you won't get Prelude. Prelude shortens the game a little bit, but it also introduces cool asymmetric starting setups and more corps. Prelude is the only way you will get me to play Terraforming Mars ever again. So to ignore it in a tournament setting means that you are playing a lesser version of Terraforming Mars. I don't know anybody out there who claims that base Terraforming Mars is better than Terraforming Mars plus Prelude. I don't know of a single human being that could dare say that, and I would sure love to hear the reason why. You know, when is differentiated setups ever considered a negative? They're always fun to have in games. You know, maybe the balance could be off on some of them, but it's always fun to have a bit more differentiation than just a single corp card that might not even be used depending on luck of the draw. But I've warmed up to it a bit more. I will play Terraforming Mars, again, 3-player cap and just Prelude. I don't want the other expansions thrown in. I couldn't care less about Turmoil, but the thing is, if Terraforming Mars is on the shelf, and so is Ark Nova, I'm going to pull Ark Nova out without even glancing at Terraforming Mars. So you'll find me in that tournament rather than this one.
Stupid fat hobbit.
Right, 2 more to go. First up, Ticket to Ride. Now, it's no surprise that Ticket to Ride would be in a tournament setting. I mean, this game just invites gateway level tournament setting, but it's quite a bit of luck of the draw in this. I mean, there are some tactical moves you can do, but you're drawing colored cards from a deck, a lot of the times random. So yes, you can make some tactical choices, but the game might just not go your way. And the interesting thing with this is that if you're choosing to be in a tournament that's rewarding like different levels of complexity in that, it kind of does mean that, you know, with the more strategic games, you've obviously got more control over your ability to win it, whereas in Ticket to Ride, you don't have as much control. But I still really enjoy this game. I've got every single Ticket to Ride in the other room in a big crate, which was probably a mistake, because as soon as you put stuff into giant crates, like the ones on top of my shelf, you struggle to be able to get the game out to play very often. But that being said, maybe I can resolve that problem in the future, maybe get a bunch of the old Ticket to Ride boxes and then store it in a different way, or perhaps just find a lighter alternative to store the game. I don't know, I'm gonna have to work on this, but the game itself, still great fun. I love the UK map the best. This one is probably just going to be the America map in the tournament, which the America map is fine, but in 5 players, it's kind of a bit chaotic. I would imagine that this is going to be played in 4-player settings. 4 players, quite a nice version of America, because in 4 players you get the double routes and you don't have that 5th player. So it's kind of the nice version of Ticket to Ride. You play this with 3 players. Having the single routes is a little bit more cutthroat, but not too bad. You play this at 5 player and it's one of the most cutthroat Ticket to Rides you can get outside of Africa. It's a little bit insane, but I enjoy it. I'm decent enough at the game, but it's Ticket to Ride. I mean, anybody can win Ticket to Ride. You know, you can make good choices, but there is still a luck of the draw aspect. So I can win or lose this as many times as anybody else, really. So the idea of making a tournament for it with a cash prize is not something I'm a big fan of. But if I was doing a tournament at a game cafe for like new gamers and that, I would gladly throw in a Ticket to Ride one, because it lends itself so well. And even if you've never played Ticket to Ride before, you can learn the game in about 5 minutes. So yeah, you might be slightly on the back foot, but it's not like we've got to teach you a giant game. It's pretty straightforward to understand. It's solid. I love it. Still love it to this day.
There'll be plenty of time to discuss your objections when and if you return.
And finally, Wingspan. Love Wingspan. Is Wingspan on my shelf? Oh yes, Wingspan right behind me. Heavy, because my Wingspan has every expansion in it, and that includes Asia. And yes, I have managed to fit everything into this box. You don't need that stupid nesting box. Go check out my review video for that to tell you why the nesting box is a waste of money. But as you can see, I've got all the boards in here. I've got the Oceania boards. Don't think I've put the normal boards in here, but then that's because I will only play this with the Oceania boards now. But with a folded space insert, there you go. It can be done. I have the score pads here. I have a cardboard dice tower in here. The folded space insert allows me to store enough eggs, you know, for 5 players, but I never play Wingspan with 5. Why would you be moronic to do that? Oh wait, flock mode exists. Asia was not the best expansion, but all the cards are in here. They're sleeved. This is just about stored in one box. So the nesting box is not going to have any use for me until another expansion comes out. And even then, do I need more content for this game? I've got so much of it. I've got loads of cards. Why do I need just more cards? You know, you're going to have to win me over a bit more with the next few expansions and just give me more cards for an extortionate price tag before I decide I want it. But Wingspan, it's still one of my favorite games. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Yes, there is some luck of the draw. I mitigate the bonus cards with a house rule that I mentioned. Check out my top 10 house rules list for more details on what I do with Wingspan in that regard. But I really enjoy this. Now, in a tournament setting, you're only going to play this with the base set. And the base set is fine, but it does lend itself a little bit too much to not easily being able to obtain food or play high value bird cards, and the egg strategy can be a little dominant in the base version, which is why the Oceania boards fix that for me, because they balance out the eggs with the food and introduce the nectar resource to play bigger birds. So I will always use the Oceania expansion. I don't know if I'd want to play a tournament of Wingspan with just the basic board, because I imagine that a lot of people are going to try and gun for the same sort of strategy in it. But that being said, it's a cool game and certainly does reward some nice tactical choices. It's simple, light, and if you've played the game before, you can go at a pretty good quick pace. But I don't know if this is a game that I would recommend for a tournament. You know, I win more games of this one than not, but there's still a luck of the draw element that's quite strong in this game. Yes, you've got a tableau of birds that you can draw from, but a lot of the time you're drawing them from the deck, and the dice out of the feeder are going to be rolled, and that's a random element too. I love this game, but I will be the first to admit that this is not the most strategic game in the world. It's a tactical game through and through, and there is an element of luck, hence it's so approachable and accessible to a lot of people. But for a tournament, I don't know, and certainly this is a game I like to play as a kind of like a zen feeling. You know, Wingspan is just nice, it's pleasant, all the beautiful birds and everything. You know, you can almost put on a little soundtrack of bird tweeting in the background and just be like, that's nice, let's play some Wingspan. With the tension of a tournament though, I think you remove that element out. And so it's not one that I would personally stick in a tournament, but I love the game, so if you're going to put one in front of me and say, well, look, you got to pick with this and a few of the others, then I'll gladly jump into Wingspan because I love the game. But I like to tailor my version of Wingspan and not just play the base set if I can. So there is that element there. But as I say, it's one of the most popular games in existence right now. So if it wasn't in this tournament, I'd be very surprised.
In bird culture, this is considered a dick move.
So there you go. Whew, 16 major event games. There are a few that take place in the consolation section as well, the Outer Ring as they're called. I ain't got time to talk about all of those though as well, that would be a little bit insane. But for the main prize, those 16 games are what are being played in terms of getting the cash prize. And I certainly have my opinions on a lot of them, you know, both to the extreme, I love it to bits, to the extreme, I hate its guts. So at least this one's catering to a wide variety here. You know, I would be a bit afraid if 16 games you picked pretty much the same type of game all the way through, but no, Ticket to Ride and, you know, Patchwork and Seven Wonders against something like Ra and Wingspan and, you know, Azul, but then to all the likes of Ark Nova, Terraforming Mars, and, you know, Great Western Trail and Gaia Project. So it certainly is covering light, medium, and heavy in a good wide spectrum, and, you know, I applaud the series for doing that. Would I ever attend it as a tournament player? Probably not. As I say, tournament play is not my style. I want to play a game for fun. I don't care what ranking I am in the world for a particular board game, because I just want to play it. Because at the end of the day, it's only a game. I say this often enough, and I stand by that rule. But if you are interested in attending the World Series of Board Games, whether as a casual player or one of the tournament attendees, you might want to check out the description below for my affiliate code. It is BROKENWSBG. Use this code when you are purchasing your ticket, and you will get $40 off the ticket price. A flat $40 off the ticket price. BROKENWSBG. So if you are attending the event, then by all means let us know how it goes, and I hope the discount, you know, enables you to, I don't know, buy some more snacks while you're there. I don't know what they serve food-wise, but that's essentially what I would do with any discount. So hope you attend and hope you enjoy it. So that's it from me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and let me know your comments below about the games I've talked about, all 16 of them. Do you like them? Do you love them? Do you agree or disagree with the thoughts? But mainly, I would like to know your thoughts about them as tournament games. Would you play these 16 games in a tournament? Yay or nay? Let me know your reasons why. I think it will make for some good reading. Until next time though, by all means check out more content on the show, including the recent reviews that I've been doing and top 10 lists as well that I have mentioned. And until next time, remember, regardless of whether you're playing a game for tournament play or casual play, it's still only a game. So remember to have fun. That's the main thing. Take care and bye for now.